welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the final quick shift edition of the Kuehl Show. I am your host today, the insider of the insiders, Tyler Kuehl, and oh man, we have made it to the end of the playoffs. It may be October, but we're there. And congratulations to the 2020 Stanley Cup champions. You can see it right here on this little ticker thing up here. The Tampa Bay Lightning, the team I picked 538 days ago. I'm capping out already on the speaker. But we're going to get to all that and more here on 12 Ounce Sports, whether you're watching us here on YouTube, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on Twitter, whether you're watching us on Zingo TV, channel 761. If you want to watch us on Zingo TV, go on ahead. Make sure you use the promo code 12 ounce, which is 12, the letter O, the letter Z, or Z if you use in proper English. Make sure you get on there. We got a lot to get to today. We're going to recap the playoffs, and then we're going to talk about some stuff towards the end, maybe some college puck, because we have our guest, the member of the newest member of the Elite, ELITE, all caps, bolded, underlined, and italicized, Elite 8-Timers Club. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show, Harrison Watt. Harrison, how you doing today, sir?
I'm good. How many other people are in that club? I figured I should get my own jacket or something by now at least.
You and Thomas Biondo are the only two, and that's why we got and I keep putting him on. He wants a belt. You want a jacket. But I mean, we have our own merch. Look, we have our own merch here on the Kuehl Show. Can we would the merch be okay? Would the merch be a suffice compensation there, Mr. Watt?
Yeah, and now I'm just realizing that because I missed my last scheduled appearance a few weeks ago, I would be alone with 9, right?
Well, so I'll be honest. I thought about it. We got to get Harrison on towards the end of the playoffs, no matter what, because we can make sure it's even. Because these two, it's literally like a horse race. It's neck and neck. We can't have one get too far ahead than the other. Got to keep you guys equal because maybe we'll use that to our advantage here on the Kuehl Show one of these days. We'll have to just wait and see. But Harrison, Ferris State, by the way, I forgot to mention, Ferris State play-by-play Harrison Watt, even though if you've watched the other 7 appearances of Harrison, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it. And if you're also watching on 12 Ounce Sports, you also can read the fact that it says Harrison Watt, Ferris play-by-play. Harrison, how have you been, sir? How have the playoffs been in the Watt household?
It was, well, first of all, it's really the Byard household because we both know who wears the pants in my house.
Well, yeah. Well, does the dog control that now? Does the dog control the house now?
I'm firmly in third place behind the dog and my lovely significant other. The playoffs were good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think the NHL hit a home run. I think it's the first time maybe in my lifetime where the NHL is the top league of the Big Four, just in terms of, their level of popularity, how well everything went off, how well people think of the commissioner, the broadcast, the way they made things look on TV, everything was perfect. And I know underneath some of the amenities that the players didn't happen in the bubble, and I think that was fairly predictable. But just the look of it was perfect. I think the playoffs were incredible.
Yeah, no.
And I'm glad they finished. That was the one big thing. I'm sorry to cut you off, but everyone was talking about, we'll get started. All the leagues are like, we'll get started and we'll see if we get to crown a champion. It is a huge, huge home run that the NHL got to crown their champion. There were no positive cases and there were no delays. Everything was excellent. A++ to the NHL.
I will agree with you. The fact that, because when it was first announced, I'm like, okay, at what point is it going to, have to shut everything down? Because since everyone is in a bubble and it's so close together, if one case happens, another case would just snowball. But it never happened. And the NHL was very open about it. They kept saying, hey, no cases this week, no cases this week. And we're like, I mean, in terms of execution, yes, they did it well because you look at the NFL now, Tennessee and Pittsburgh, that game had to get postponed because of COVID. Baseball, obviously, once again, the NFL and the MLB, they had it open where they're not putting teams in bubbles. Obviously, Major League Baseball's playoffs will end in the bubble in Texas, right? Is it Texas where the World Series is going to be? Yeah, Texas is NLCS and World Series. And I just remember I remember the St. Louis Cardinals, my buddy Cooper Weidenthaler down here at Davenport. He is a big Cardinals fan, so I always gave him crap for the fact that the Cardinals couldn't stay safe. But, yeah, the NBA's done a great job, but they were having problems with players leaving the bubble. The NHL, and you have to look at it from every perspective, from Gary Bettman down to the players, everyone bought in. And that's why I've said multiple times, Harrison, on this show during these playoffs, the fact that he wasn't booed is actually, I can allow it, and I'm okay with it because I've garnered a whole level of respect for Bettman, even though I've bashed him on this show into the dirt multiple times. But he has done so well with the situation that a lot of people probably wouldn't be able to handle well, and is able to go through it in stride and in a very calm demeanor like he always has. But he's done it to where it's worked for the league, and now the league is able to move forward and still be in one piece where many other people, obviously we saw it with MLB. They were almost in shambles by the time their season started, but Bettman was able to do such a great job.
Gary Bettman, I think, saved his legacy with the Bubble Cup. The big thing with him is that everyone's like, Gary Bettman's this grouchy curmudgeon. He doesn't want guys going to the Olympics. He doesn't want change in the NHL. Gary Bettman pulled this off. It was incredible. And yes, I know, again, there were some issues with the amenities behind the scenes with what the players are promised and what they actually got and how things, it's tough to keep everything under control and to make it look good too. But between this and Gary Bettman, I think committing a little bit more back to the Olympics, I think he's probably saved his legacy. When he retires, I think people are going to remember this more than they're going to remember the lockouts, than they're going to remember not going to the Olympics the one time. I really think that he's probably, he hasn't erased all of that stuff, but I don't think a lot of people are going to remember it as much anymore as they used to.
It's funny. I look back on it because now you make me think of the lockouts, and I remember how heavy we were that we were going to have another lockout after this season, and how certain I was on this program. I was saying we're going to have a lockout, and it's going to happen. So all these contracts are getting paid all these signing bonuses, so when that year is canceled, they still get their money. But yet they were able to get through it, and now I look at these lockouts. I'm like, yeah, okay, that happened, but the pandemic, we had it. We had and some people have called it the COVID Cup or whatever, but we were able to crown a champion. I think that's the biggest thing at the end of all this is that we were able to make it through, and we were able to say we have a Stanley Cup champion. We didn't have to put 2020 with an asterisk and a Wikipedia page that it doesn't exist because there was no Stanley Cup final and whatnot. But yet here we are in Tampa, the team, a minor half shot in the dark, kind of serious, half joking pick of mine, wins the cup. And I said it, Harrison, because they won 62 games and they lost. And I'm like, okay, it's just going to be like the 96 Wings. I didn't think I was going to be right, but Tampa was able to just have the right players at the right time, and they changed their style a little bit, kind of like the 97 Wings, got a little bit tougher, a little bit grittier, and they're able to pull it off and win the Stanley Cup. Tampa, I think, is very deserving of the trophy.
Yeah, that's the other thing is you didn't just get a champion. You get the champion that you should have gotten. It's not like Montreal made a run and won the cup, which would have been, I think a lot of people would have been peeved about that, aside from the fact that everyone hates the Montreal Canadiens. But it's not like Columbus, a team that kind of scrapped their way around, or the New York Islanders. Like, the most skilled, the best built team won. They had the best goalie. They had the best defenseman. They had probably the two best forwards between Kucherov and Point. You could maybe argue for Nathan MacKinnon, although I kind of forget about him because he was gone so long ago now. But I think they just had the best of everything, really. Everybody came through when they needed to. It's a well-coached team. I think probably they had one of the best three coaches in the league, too. I don't know if I would quite put John Cooper ahead of Barry Trotz and John Tortorella yet, but he's in their class. I do think overall they have the best coaching staff. Obviously, there's a couple Ferris State alums on it, which
not biased at all there. Not biased at all, Harrison.
De facto makes them the best. We both know that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, no, I think they're the best of everything. They deserve to win the Stanley Cup. It was probably the best pick. I fell into the trap of thinking, well, it's a weird year. Maybe Calgary can win the cup. And, they didn't. Of course, they let me down again. I won't pick them next year like I picked them the last 2 years, I promise.
If they get rid of Johnny Hockey and fill in a roster spot with actually something that someone can play in the playoffs, then maybe. But that's for the off season to determine.
Oh, I know. I'm going to need a goalie, too. Well, like Talbot wasn't terrible, but he's not going back. I don't think so.
Right.
Yeah.
Calgary was such a tough one. Of course, Dallas is the team that beat him. And I'm looking at the stats right now. Nathan MacKinnon still finished fourth in points with 25, and he was gone by Game 7 of the second round. He would have been the Conn Smythe. He could have made it to simply the next round. He would have been the Conn Smythe Trophy winner. That's how good he was with Colorado. But
I was speaking of McKinnon and that. I was what game did I watch? I watched Game 7, 2002 a few years ago, the Western Conference Final.
The 7-0 game.
And about halfway through the game, they were talking about Peter Forsberg. I believe Peter Forsberg missed the whole regular season that year.
Yep.
Came back for the playoffs. Was the leading playoff scorer up to that point. And Bill Clement, Gary Thorne were very seriously at one point, even though the Avs, I think by that point, were down 5-0.
Yeah.
We're very seriously discussing the topic that Peter Forsberg could still win the Conn Smythe Trophy and not be in the Stanley Cup final. They tossed it around a couple times, and I think, had you seen McKinnon play into the next round and gets maybe 35 points, to me, that's the most outstanding player.
It's incredible to think, looking back, because that is true, that people forget that, because everyone's like, how did that happen? Remember, he blew his spleen out in the 0-1 playoffs. That is literally the reason why Joe Sakic won the Conn Smythe, because Peter Forsberg didn't play in the Stanley Cup against New Jersey. Peter Forsberg, ready for these numbers? Peter Forsberg still led all skaters in points in the 2002 playoffs. Behind him was Stevie Yzerman with 23. Joe Sakic had 19. Shanny had 19. Fedorov had 19. Forsberg, in 20 games, 27 points. He was still a point-a-game player, even though he only made it through the first three. I mean, he was one of those guys, like, he revolutionized the game, and you almost wonder if he didn't try to tear his body apart like he did, he probably would have scored 500 goals, 1,500 points probably, but that's just the way Forsberg played.
Had he played 7 games in the Stanley Cup final and not gotten a point, he still would have been a point-per-game player in the playoffs. Like, that's ridiculous if you think of it that way. I still think Nick Lidstrom did deserve the Conn Smythe that year, because it was a long time coming where people didn't respect him for about 4 or 5 years leading up to that. They just kind of were like, yeah, he's just kind of there. I think maybe he won a Norris around that time for the first time, but I don't know that everybody really respected him. This is totally off subject until that point. They're like, well, we got to pick a guy that was in the finals, and who better to pick? And you could have picked Steve Yzerman too for winning the cup basically on half a leg, but there were a lot of choices that year.
On half of one leg. His one leg was dead. The other one was half.
He couldn't skate. It was dreadful.
That's why I say, like, I was watching one of the playoff games, and I think it was, who was I talking? I remember I was conversing with someone. I'm like, man, the fact that Steve, like, you always talk about players that gutted out in the playoffs. I don't think Stevie Yzerman, the way the game is nowadays, I don't think someone could be in that much pain like Steve Yzerman was and still be able to make an impact in a game in this day and age, just the way the game is different from then and to back when the dead puck era was around.
No, but he would certainly try his ass off, and sorry for the language.
No, the ASS word apparently is still okay as long as you don't say it 20 times in a show. Apparently FCC rules.
I apologize, man. Yikes.
So you have 19 more, Harrison.
I'll have a roll. He would try his tail off, and I bet I'd be willing to bet you even today, he'd be like, put me in on the fourth line, and he'd probably go out there and he'd play. He probably wouldn't score a point, but you know him.
Right. Well, that's why I think it came out because of Stamkos. Because Stamkos scores in Game 3 and then just doesn't play the rest of the series. And I'm like, obviously the players, his teammates didn't care that he didn't play those last couple games. They knew that he was their captain, and they were, because he's been there for so long. It didn't matter if he didn't play the last 3 games. Yet
it was clear he couldn't move, though. Other than the goal. A couple times I watched him moving around, I was like, yeah, he doesn't have very much in the tank.
That goal is straight. That's where I literally look and I say, that's adrenaline. Because I watch the play and I'm like, wow, that's Stamkos' speed. That's Stamkos going. That's a Stamkos shot. But then the next shift, he's back down to like 40% of what he is. And I'm like, man, adrenaline can do weird things to people. the Lightning they were the right team. They had the two leading scorers in this postseason. You had Kucherov with 34 points, Braden Point right behind him with 33. And then in goals, you had Braden Point leading with 14. I still look back at this team and because I picked them to lose to Columbus in round 1. I thought Boston was going to beat them around in round 2. It wasn't until they went up against the Islanders I thought they could probably do this. Did you see that the same way with Tampa this year, Harrison? Did you think that they were somehow going to bottom out like they'd done in the past, or did you think actually that this was going to be their year?
I thought as long as they got by Columbus, they would at least make the conference final. Boston's a good team, but there's something not right there. It just, when it matters, there's something just a little wrong. And maybe it's the defenseman. I thought Halak was fine. I don't think the goaltending was really the issue, even though Rask left. I always thought that, okay, get past Columbus, and you'll make the conference final. They get to the conference final, I'm like, okay, the Islanders are somewhat of a carbon copy of what you saw in Columbus. They're basically the same team, basically the same coaching ability and style in Tortorella. Also, can we talk about the fact that Cooper took down Trotz and Tortorella in the same playoff run? That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that is, to no offense to Dallas Stars fans out there, the epitome of Eddie Belfour going through Grant Fuhr, Patrick Waugh, and Dominik Hasek in the same playoff.
Yeah, exactly.
So in terms of coaching, at least, because Cooper, I mean, we've seen obviously he's got a great talent group in front of him, but the fact that he's able to that's why he was a great candidate for the Jack Adams last season, because he's able to put this team together and get them to win games and be consistent through the regular season. Obviously the playoffs, but that's why postseason awards don't matter in the playoffs. They matter for the regular season only. This year he was like, all right, guys, I don't care if we win 40 games. If we win 40 and barely make the playoffs, who cares? As long as we win the cup, that's all that mattered. And they were able to do it. They were able to step up when they needed it most, and that's because of good coaching and good leadership.
Yes, and to roundabout answer your question, once I saw them in the conference final, I thought to myself, they've already beaten this type of team once. The Islanders at some point have to run out of gas. They're just not good enough in goal to withstand the storm of Tampa Bay, to use a pun a little bit, lightning storm.
Oh, you should have been here. We had Justin Godfrey on from Raw Charge. Alex and I were on fire. We were electrifying, let me tell you.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
And then the Stanley Cup final, actually, it's interesting. I thought Dallas is the same style of team that they had already seen twice, just a lot more skilled. I mean, Ben and Sagan are better than probably anybody they'd seen in the playoffs. Radulov, outside of the Boston series when you had some high talent guys, but really, I thought Tampa kind of beat the same type of team 3 times. So they had a plan on how to do that. They made it work. I honestly thought, in my opinion, the toughest test was Columbus because it was just as much a mental test as it was a physical test. And Columbus played with some serious commitment. I mean, they really did. I thought Dallas was skilled enough to win a game. In another, they hung on tight and made some things happen. The Islanders were another type of team that I looked at that they're committed to their style, they're gritty, they're tough. They're going to try and wear you down as much as they can, even if they don't have the skill to keep up. So hats off to Tampa. I mean, they had to withstand, I would liken it to basically just being hit with sandpaper or like a sandblaster for 3 straight rounds because, it's not like getting shot. It's just like having your skin slowly peeled away is how I look at it. It hurts to play against teams like that. It hurts a lot, and they made it work.
11. Hold on, I'm counting right now. 11. All right, so the Dallas Stars won 14 games. They won 14 games. They came 2 short of the Stanley Cup. I just did the quick math here. 11 of their wins came by 1 goal. I think there was the 7-4 game against Calgary in game that was game 6 of that series. What was the other win they had that was by more than 1? I think they had a 2-goal win against Colorado. No, they had a 5-2 win against Colorado and what's the other one? 6-3. Where's the other one? Come on, it's right there. It's right in front of me. They had another 2-goal win somewhere. But long story short, 4-1 against Tampa in game 1. That's right. they were able to pull it off. And I think the guy that we have to look at, and the guy that, even though it only went 6 and a couple games there towards the end, I don't give him much for game 6. I think Dallas was too depleted. But that's Anton Hudobin. That guy proved that he can be a starting goaltender in this league just by his performance alone. He went 8-1, Harrison, when he had to make 35 or more saves. That's ridiculous by any stretch, whether it be NHL, college, junior, any level of hockey. That's impressive.
I respect him, and I hate that it's happening now because I think his career is obviously most of the way over.
Well, I don't know. Tim Thomas is like, I was 45.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are rare, though. I mean, Hasek did it a little bit. Hasek also was, like, thin as a rail. He weighed, like, I think his official weight was actually, like, 168 for, like, 10 straight years, which is obscene how he was able to carry all that gear and be as effective as he was. Hudobin, not that he's, like, out of shape or anything, but you have to be in freakish shape to continue to that level for that long. And I feel bad that it's kind of happening now. And I also feel bad. Is he a UFA this year? I'm blanking.
Hudobin, I don't think so. Not this year. I have cap friendly up. I should be able to. Dallas.
I didn't think so either. But again, it gives you a lot of stability. I respect him. He's a good teammate. People like him. I mean,
oh no, he is. He is a UFA. Oh
well,
boy.
I also feel bad for him because teams aren't going to want to spend money right now. And I love goalies. I love goalies as much as you love goalies. You are a goalie.
Yep.
But it's my opinion, and I think it's kind of Steve Yzerman's opinion, to think about the Red Wings and teams that are going into rebuild that need that extra piece. The last thing you spend money on is the right goalie, or you get your goalie on his rookie contract or a guy you drafted. I think if you have to spend money on a goalie, you're in bad shape. Case in point, Curtis Joseph. Case in point, Frederik Andersen.
Man,
I know that
I have my takes on Cujo. Well, Frederik Andersen, yes. Frederik Andersen, because I'm sitting here thinking, man, wouldn't it be great to, because there's the rumors being tossed around, Andersen for Kemper and whatever. And I'm like, okay, sure, if you can platoon, but you say Cujo, and I always hate the Cujo thing because think of it this way. Those Leafs teams were not the best defensive teams. They were getting outshot like 40 to whatever almost every night when Cujo was there. So he was used to facing 40 shots a night. Then you go to this.
Well, I'm thinking Cujo Detroit.
No, that's what I'm saying, because he goes to Detroit, and he's so used to facing that many shots, he's out of rhythm when he's only facing 20 shots a game. He couldn't do Marty Berdeur's kind of workload. He had to get that many shots to be good. That's what's so crazy. That's why I look back, I'm like, I can see why everyone looks bad on him, but I'm like, he was a better goaltender when his team was outmatched. That's always my thing with Cujo.
Well, I'll counter with this. He was getting paid $8 million a year, which is...
There was no cap, Harrison. There was no cap back then. No one cares.
Yes, but now that's too much against the cap.
Right.
If you want to fit in the amount of money you need to spend on defense and the amount of money you need to spend on guys that can score. The other thing is he was put in a bad situation when he came. And if with the Dominic Hasek drama and everything, but when Hasek came out of retirement, the fans were down on him all the time. But if you're going to bring a goalie in, it has to make sense. If you're a team that has it built from the back forward, I would think a team that would pay for a goalie would be like Carolina, who I think is pretty close to what they need to be to get over the top.
Which is funny because Anton Hudobin, when he was, I don't want to say tearing it up in Boston behind Tuukka Rask, but when he was showing that he may be able to be that next number one goaltender, goes to Carolina, and it didn't work out so much. But I think if you put him in there now, maybe, but you would have to platoon him with another goaltender. That would either be Mrazek or James Reimer, whatever, Don Waddell, whatever would want to do. And you make a very good point that the last piece you want to add is a goaltender for a team, because I'm just thinking about teams with their goaltending, and I just thinking about the idea of the Red Wings. Obviously, the Leafs aren't there yet because the Leafs have the talent, but we don't have a long enough show for me to tell people what the Leafs need to do to become a cup winner. But I know because you're a Red Wings fan, we grew up here in Michigan, and since we're on the topic of Stevie Yzerman, name me a goaltender that was not named Glenn Hanlon or whatever the heck his name was before Osgood that was a buy, or before Vernon that was a buy by the Red Wings to get better at goaltending. Obviously, Osgood was homegrown. There was Timmy Cheveldae. Bob Essenza was at the end of his career when he came over. Then Ozzy stole a job from him, but that was the last piece, and Vernon was the guy that finally they said, let's bring him in, and they finally won a cup with him. So, I mean, to your point, you're correct, Harrison. The last piece should be a goaltender. And it's so weird, like, could Hugh Dobin actually be that guy? Oh, there's all sorts of stuff with that.
Yeah, the Wings face an interesting quandary. Everyone's like, sign Jacob Markstrom, and I'm like, please, God, no. Anything but tying up a 30-year-old goaltender who has never had a top 10 save percentage, who to me appeared to be kind of a bad teammate in that last series, which you don't need right now with a young team. We're trying to build a culture. I watched some of the body language, and it doesn't tell you everything, but I watched some of the body language from him in that last series he played, and I was like, I don't want this guy. I don't want to spend 6 years on him. I don't want to spend $7 million on him because he might be maybe the best or the best prospect of those becoming available. Just don't spend right now. In my dream scenario, the Red Wings trade back 3 or 4 spots in the draft. They grab first-round pick next year for that, or a couple of second-round picks. You pick Yaroslav Askarov.
Yep. The Russian 2 league, the major, I forgot I think it's called the Major Hockey League in the English
MHL.
translation. Yeah,
it's
MHL.
The MHL, yeah.
Yep.
You stash him for a few years, and by the time you've drafted enough players to become competitive, he's probably going to be ready to go and on a rookie contract. Yeah,
I mean, because I don't think there's any rush for any of the draft picks this year, just because of the fact that A, it's in October, B, that no one's going to play in North America. No one's going to come over to North America this year. But yeah, goaltending, buying right now as a goaltender, because yes, Markstrom is that shiny thing right now. He played well in the postseason, was able to take Vancouver to Game 7. Well, pardon me, Game 5, and then to that, Demko did the rest from there. But I mean, it's interesting to see what Vancouver's going to do. I'm sure we may have a guest about that, but we're going to take a break here, folks, here on 12 Ounce Sports. When we come back, we're going to talk some college hockey with Harrison. So stick around here. We'll be back with more of the Kuehl Show right after this. And welcome back, everyone, to the Kuehl Show here on 12 Ounce Sports, the last quick shift edition ever. Well, maybe not ever, at least until next season when we actually need to do 2 shows again come playoff time because we had to do so much. We're still here with Harrison Watt, Ferris State play-by-play broadcaster Harrison Watt. We talked about the NHL in the first part of the program. Now we're going we're going to hit the books with Harrison Watt. Harrison, the college hockey game right now obviously is absent, but I keep looking around on the social medias and I keep seeing teams practicing Westerns on the ice, Alabama, Huntsville. I don't know about but I think it was, well, Peyton tweeted about it, but there was like Northern was skating and all these other schools are getting on the ice. Means they're close. Where from what you've heard or what you think, or would think is going on, where does NCAA hockey stand in terms of returning to game action?
Well, conference by conference, everybody's, I think, got a little bit of a different feel to it. The question's going to be what the NCAA wants to do. What are they going to do with winter championships? One, I don't think. I know March Madness is going to happen because they need that $1 billion payday.
Yep.
But if they're going to do that, they got to be kind of equitable. College hockey is up there. The Frozen Four is a big revenue generator, typically. So I would think that championship will get saved somehow as well. I'm not sure how. But the one good thing with that is you can test everyone before they go in for the tournament, for the regional rounds. Then there's that week off before the Frozen Four. Right. So you can just, you take your week, you practice, you test again, you put them in a bubble. So it's, I think the NCAA hockey tournament is actually very doable. So it kind of depends on that. I'm betting it's going to be a shortened season. We were supposed to, I was supposed to be on the road to Michigan State Saturday morning for our first game of the year.
You can see good buddy Scott Moore over there.
Yeah, I know. It's a shame. Probably not going to see him. I would imagine what's going to happen is the conferences are going to stick together. If there are non-conference games, it'll probably be something like conference opponents only in those non-conference games.
Or regionally, you think, right? Or would they stick to only conference teams?
I would hope regionally, but it depends on everybody's protocols. You don't want to play a team from a conference that has different protocols if you think there's going to be a difference in safety level.
Right.
I don't know that that's going to be the case. I know the Big Ten is probably going to try and test a ton. And you never know what everybody else is going to do. I'm really not privy to a lot of that information. But I will say, I think, around New Year's for sure, that would be the hope to play. The question is going to be, do we bleed it into the end of this year? Do we start around, say, Thanksgiving, and maybe play some non-conference games? That remains to be seen. But I think the optimism around hockey is growing a lot. I think it's good. I think it's probably about as safe as anything else. The one thing I would like to see is I'd like to see the conferences mandate that all skaters switch to the bubble instead of the cage. I think that would help a little bit with some of the safety. Obviously, I've seen pictures of Western Michigan and they're wearing masks while they're skating underneath a cage. And I understand that, but you wear the bubble and that can kind of serve as a face shield. I've heard that argument many times.
Well, shoot, you see people walking down the street with with face shields like they're like welders' masks or whatever. So I guess it's kind of the same thing.
It's no different to me.
Yeah.
So I think hockey is safe. I think we can expect a college season, whether it happens around Thanksgiving time, whether it happens around Christmas time. But I definitely think by around New Year's, we're going to be getting going. And I don't know what the schedule is going to be like. We're in a tricky conference where we've got the Alaskas. So I don't know what that plan is going to be like. But I'm optimistic. I feel really good. I felt a lot better the last 2 weeks, just kind of knowing the little that I do know. Stuff that I can't quite reveal yet, but I will when I can.
You can tell us, Harrison. We'll just turn the mics off here. Hold on. Let me just turn this mic down. Okay. Yep. They can't hear you, Harrison. Go ahead and tell us what you know.
Spill the beans.
Hey, I had a story. There was a story you told me, and you specifically asked me not to release it, even though I could have became a millionaire if I broke that story. But no, I gotta save Harrison. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding you, Harrison.
I mean, I don't know a ton, but I know enough to get by. So I think the optimism is high. I think, thinking about the CCHA in the future, I would say keep an eye out for some stuff soon. That would be my juicy little hint.
Soon, ... Oh, man. We got to watch.
Soon, ... within a few weeks here or so. Maybe a little less now, but there's a lot of positive momentum around college hockey. I try and follow the other sports, too, as best I can. I don't know a lot about what's going on with college basketball at the Division II level. I know what it is at the Division I level.
Yeah.
But it all just kind of remains to be seen. I think it's less now. You know when you go into a meeting at the beginning of COVID and the answers were always, I don't know. I think the answers are now more, we're getting there, we're having the conversations, it's coming.
Right.
It's less pessimism, more optimism. I feel good. I'm excited. I'll tell you, man, I can't wait to put my headset back on and be in a rink sometime soon.
I mean, we have our headsets on here, but it's not the same thing. It's like, oh, we put the headset on, okay, it's cool, we're doing the show, but it's not, at the rink with the. I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously we don't know. Obviously, MHSAA's recently upped their allowance of people for indoor sports, so that may trickle over to NCAA. We don't know, but the point of the fact that I would call a game at 9 a.m. in the morning right now with no one around in a barn that doesn't have heat, but I wouldn't care because I'd be doing something.
Well, it's interesting you say that because there's a place we go on the road. Just allow me to reminisce a little bit about this. And I think now you're probably the same way. When you think back to like the little stuff around that goes around your hockey season, you start to appreciate that more. When we go to Bemidji, we bus. We leave from Big Rapids, we go north, the UP, we go straight across the UP towards Duluth, and we stop after about 9 hours of busing on day one. It's a 2-day trip for us usually. I don't know that it would be that way this year with COVID. We stop in a little town called Ashland, Wisconsin, and Ashland, Wisconsin is home to Northlands College.
Yep.
They play at this tiny little rink, like smaller ceiling by almost half than Aviglaven. It's not heated. It's on the edge of Lake Superior. I think it's actually the site where the Edmund Fitzgerald loaded the ship, if I'm not. Either there or Duluth. It might have been Duluth, actually. I might be wrong about that.
I'm trying to think of the song now, but I don't think they mentioned where they load up. But anyways, continue.
So it's like right there. You're there in January or February. It's miserably cold. You walk into the rink, it's miserably cold, but the ice is pristine. Everything in there is old. They got like the old like neon signs everywhere, and it's just. I think about that rink. I've thought about that rink more during COVID than I've thought about almost anything. I would just love to go in there and have our morning practice before we get on the bus and go the next 4 hours to Bemidji or 4.5 hours, or whatever it is. Just to be in places like that, and Coach Daniels talks about that place all the time. He goes, I walk in, I'm always so cold, but I enjoy that practice more than almost any other practice all year long. And I miss the little stuff like that. I would love to just be standing in there. Obviously, I'm not calling a practice, but I'm just standing there watching, taking some pictures. It's great. I love it.
I will say this, Harrison. Aviglaven, because you talk about how cold Northland's college rink is there in Ashland. And I've played some cold barns before. Aviglaven, for obviously the Ferris guys may be something different, but at least when I played there, I did tournaments where I played high school there, it was the most miserable rink to play in for me because it's so incredibly warm. It's
the hottest rink in college hockey.
It's connected to the basketball court, the Wink Arena there right across the hallway, because they need to keep that warm for the fans that come in. So I walk in like, I'm so used to like because I wore a suit for the games that you and I did last season. And I'm so used to wearing an undershirt, couple pairs of underwear, making sure everything, I'm thermally warm. I, for some reason, just completely forgot about that in my first game. Because I think my first game with you was in December that year. Maybe that's why I was getting cold. And I was wearing my undershirts and all that stuff. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I don't need my jacket. This is ridiculous. I was like sweating during the broadcast because Aviglaven, it's a great environment for a hockey game. When that Ferris versus Western on a Saturday night, the dog pound rocking. It's nothing else like it. It's comfortable for the fans. On the ice is just you're sweating during just you're skating onto the ice and you're already sweating. That's how warm that rink is.
Oh, I'm with you on that. It's 20 degrees warmer at press box level than it is at ice level. It's still warm at ice level for an ice rink. But, like, I've been in games where – I'll give you another good example. A chiller went out one time, which that era compressor, those happen.
Yep.
Against Western. And it was at the beginning of the period it went out, and I'm up there in the press box, and I'm thinking to myself, man, it is really hot up here. I'm sweating. And there used to be an old thermometer next to me. And I remember looking before they took this thing out of the wall. I remember looking at it. It was 78 degrees up there. I was like, no way. And it was a packed house, so that's going to happen.
Yep.
We had some ice issues that night. They got fixed. Our ice crew's awesome. I just remember that, and I'm like, this is hotter than usual. Like, I'm used to being hot, being up here calling games, but like, it was a little bit much that night. And there are plenty of nights that are like that. I'm always warm up there doing games.
Well,
I put a lot of energy into it too.
Oh yeah. Well, that's why when you say to do this, wear a sweater or something like that, or a zip sweater, I'm just like, no, no, I'm gonna die up here. I did a whole game in a polo one time, in an Under Armour polo. I think I worked basketball that day, and I was running around a lot. I was so hot. I got up to the rink for game time. I was like, I'm not putting a jacket on. I'm dying up here. It's so funny because like even like the bigger rinks, like you go down to Compton at Notre Dame, or you go over to Lawson or Ann Arbor. Those are they're bigger arenas, so obviously you got to try to keep the fans comfortable. But it's still not like it's not warm in there. Every time I go in there, it's so interesting to go to different arenas around not just pro level but college hockey. And there's not many rinks. Even if it's the middle of summer, you're not wearing a t-shirt inside a rink most of the time. Ava Glaven's a different story. Unless it's like 10 degrees, you know how cold it can get in Big Rapids, Harrison. If it gets cold outside, then yes, you're bundled up. You're running into Ava Glaven. That's how much warmer Ava Glaven can be to the outside elements of Big Rapids, Michigan.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But we've been chatting here with Harrison Watt, Ferris State play-by-play, talking some NHL, reminiscing about the good old days when we actually all were broadcasting and cold rinks, warm rinks, we don't care what kind of rinks. It can be outside. We can be playing hockey on the ocean water. I don't care. As long as I'm calling something, I'm sure Harrison says the same way. Harrison, thank you for coming on once again. The newest member of the 8 Timers Club, Harrison Watt. Harrison, we'll definitely talk to you again soon, friend.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
And once again, that was Harrison Watt. Always a fun chat with him because it's always fun to talk with broadcasters. It's always good stuff because you get to be, you get to just chat and you get to tell them about what your favorite stuff is. And, obviously being a broadcaster too, you can reminisce. And that's why when we talked with Cody Jansen on Monday's show here on the Kuehl Show, we were able to talk about goaltending stuff because Cody Jansen's a goaltender. When you have that kind of connection with people, and that's why where hopefully I've talked to a couple people recently that may be making an appearance here on this show. I can't name names yet because A, I don't know when we're going to have them on, and B, we haven't officially confirmed it yet, but they've expressed interest in coming onto the show. And those are other people that I can associate with. So don't want to reveal too much here. Can't do what gotta do what Harrison does. Can't tell people too much. Gotta be on the whereabouts of how things are going on. So, we only 15 minutes left here. I'm glad we had a nice long conversation here as I awkwardly scratch my ear through my headset. What a run. What a run, guys. We made it. We made it through the Stanley Cup playoffs. Did it seem like it went by fast? Or is it just me? Because I think about that now because I'm like, because that went by, burp there for a second. Went by so quickly. It seemed like it just zoomed right on by. And next thing you know, here we were. We were all of a sudden done. And yes, I know we got free agency here in a couple days, and then we got the draft coming up here as well. 5 days from now, the draft. Thankfully, we'll be able to get a show in before the draft. We'll do a draft preview show on Monday with Alex here in studio. It's so crazy. Because when the way Harrison said, like the fact that we crowned a champion, Because there were some points once the playoffs got going, all those thoughts in my head went away because I'm like, all right, we're going to get through this. Because when we were sitting there leading up to this, we didn't say it too much on the show because we want to think optimistically, but it's like, what if this goes wrong? What if we play 2 games into that qualifying series, someone gets COVID, boom, the playoffs are shut down. All this work, all this money put into it for nothing. But then it's just started, and I'm like, okay, the game's good. The action's great. We're in the playoffs, and then it just went away, and we just went back to normal. And yes, the questions were early on. Is it weird watching without fans? Yeah, it was odd because you had the big LED boards going across the arenas. It looked like WrestleMania entering Edmonton and Toronto, which even though Toronto has hosted WrestleMania twice, but they were both at the Sky Dome, so it was not the Scotiabank Arena. They've held pay-per-views there. They've held SummerSlam, Survivor Series, multiple Raws and SmackDowns. Pretty sure Sunday Night Heat. They had Unforgiven 2006. That was a TLC match. I'm sorry. I'm just going off now on my wrestlingness, But, yeah, it was different, but it was still the playoffs. The action was still tough. The games were still good. And look at the Tampa Bay Lightning. Would it have been better had they won it at Amalie Arena in front of their home crowd? Sure. But, man, they were still able to go out and win the Stanley Cup. It could have been in front of no fans, 20,000 fans. Nobody cared. We were able to watch hockey. We were able to love hockey. We were able to talk about hockey in a present tense. Guys, that's all we wanted. That's all I'm sure all of us want here. We don't want we don't just want to talk about, yes, it's always fun to reminisce with Harrison and I talking about, Curtis Joseph playing for the Wings and Hasek and all the goaltenders and how teams developed back in the day and whatnot. We love doing that, of course, because we like talking about the history of the game. But the fact that we're still able to fall back and just watch a hockey game, whether it be in an empty arena in Edmonton or a morning skate at Northlands College, that is why we love this game. Because no matter where it is, no matter if you're playing in a little podunk, little public rink, or playing in Scotiabank Arena on Hockey Night in Canada, the game is there. I can't wait to get back to work, wherever it is. I should have asked Harrison if there was going to be a deal with the color commentators, because I'm going to be out for a while. But one thing I forgot to mention to him, the USHL released their schedule, the United States Hockey League, the Junior A League here in the United States, the highest junior level in the country. They have their schedule coming out. They'll be starting in early November. So that's good to see. Good to see hockey coming back at the junior level, college level, like Harrison said. I know he's holding something. He's holding it from all of us. No, I'm kidding. You can also follow Harrison on the Twitters at Watt Harrison. Be sure to give him some loves and say thank you for making an appearance here. His 8th appearance on the Kuehl Show. Coming up next here on 12-Ounce Sports, the Profits. They'll be talking some NBA Finals action. That started last night. Cooper and I were watching some of that game. What a weird game that was. They'll be talking about that. They'll be talking about NFL coming up this weekend. Obviously, probably sure Tennessee and Pittsburgh. That game not happening on Sunday. That'll be a big talking point with them. Be sure to stay tuned in for them. But I'm excited to see what happens moving forward, because with everything that's happened, now we have another off season, but it's not going to be as long. It's just going to be, all right, let's take a break and get back to normal. Now, obviously, the National Hockey League, and we'll probably get to more of this with a lot of our other guests we're going to have in the future here and with Alex in the studio, because now we're all going to go back to our Monday night shows, just Mondays here on 12-Ounce Sports, 6 to 8:30. And also, of course, as always, if you were able to watch all this live, if you missed Harrison Watt, if you're just tuning in, sorry, we only got 10 minutes left here on the show, but if you just missed Harrison, that's okay. Be sure to go on the Kuehl Show YouTube channel later. I think I should be able to get it up later today. Or listen to it on your favorite podcatcher, the replay of today's Quick Shift edition. Last one of the playoffs, and I'm sure this will not be my last show by myself. I'm sure Alex may have to miss on Monday because he's got class or whatever, because he is back in school. That's important. It's a senior year, guys. He may, knock on wood, he may have a piece of paper at the end of this year if everything works out. That means he's gonna get a degree. He's gonna get a degree, and he's gonna be a certified person of his major, which is, even though I'm his older brother, I think it's sports management. I don't remember what it is. But regardless, the fact that we don't know what's going to happen. But the fact that we made it through this, and we know, I'm not saying that the NHL is going to be able to get through anything. They're not going to be able to just snap the fingers and all right, all problems that happen in the future will be easy. That's not necessarily the case. The league will always have bumps in the road. Look at the entire history of the NHL, and I can tell you exactly when there were problems in this league and how they were able to get through it. Case in point, who won the 1918 Stanley Cup? Who won the Stanley Cup in 1918? Who? Nobody. Exactly. Because 1918 Stanley Cup Playoffs. No, excuse me, 1919. Pardon me. I had to make sure I looked it up. The 1919 Stanley Cup Finals. Never happened. Because after 4 games, the series ended. Why did it end, you ask? Because they had to cancel it because of the Spanish influenza. It so far, and I'm looking at it to make sure I was right. I'm sorry, I'm looking at it to make sure, because I know we talked about it with Alex, it's Spanish influenza, which killed defenseman Joe Hall, the Montreal Canadiens. Montreal and Seattle, by the way. There was that. There was the WHA expansion threatening the NHL. Big money, and almost made the NHL kind of step up and say, we got to do a little bit better here, guys. Obviously, the WHA did end up going under. But then, 92, there was the player strike. Look at 1988 in the playoffs. You have Jim Schoenfield not pushing Kaharski, but kind of bumping into him by accident. And then they all start yelling at each other, and away they go. Refs don't show up for Game 4. And so all of a sudden they have to do a bunch of nobody refs, a bunch of guys that work for the Devils, I think it was. The NHL got through that. Got through player strike in 91, 92. Bettman comes in. They have the 94-95 lockout. They're able to get through that, finish the season. Devils won the Cup that year. 04-05, the work stoppage. I know it's awful, but the league, it took them a long time, and a lot of people resented it for a long time, guys. They were able to get through it. 2012 lockout, able to get through that. They were able to deal with the threatening possible, overlooming possible lockout. They were able to get through that. And when the entire world shut down, when probably in the worst pandemic of this generation, 1918 influenza, affecting the 1919 Stanley Cup, they were able to get through it. Guys, whenever you think the days are dark, there are people out there that are looking for the light. And the NHL, no matter how tough it got, was able to get through and is still profitable, still working, and we still love it. We hate it, but we love it. It's a wonderful thing. Make sure, once again, folks, to stay tuned in here on 12-Ounce Sports. We will be talking we're talking about the profits coming up here on 12-Ounce Sports. We are not done here, though, on the Kuehl Show. We're not done this offseason. No, Monday, draft talk. And then the Monday after that, free agency talk. And the Monday after that, I don't know. But we'll figure it out. Because like the NHL, the Kuehl Show keeps going on, even though we don't know what we're doing half the time anyways. But it's wonderful. That's why this game's wonderful. Because no matter what happens, we're able to get through it. And we're all going to get through it together, right? Right, everybody? Right. Once again, folks, I am Tyler Kuehl saying thanking you once again for watching this episode or listening to this episode of The Kuehl Show. Be sure to go to our merch page. We have merch. Teespring.com/store/The Kuehl Show. But when you put The Kuehl Show in the address bar, make sure you put the and the dash Kuehl dash show. You can also make it a little bit easier on you. Just click the link in the description of this video or the podcast, wherever you're listening to, because it'll be on there. It'll be merch, and then the link. Click it. Get all your good stuff. Get all your favorite merch. Look good and all that good stuff with TKS swag. Once again, I'm Tyler Kuehl. You can follow me at TJKU29, but you can also follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at The Kuehl Show. Follow them there. Use the hashtag, oh boy, my protein shake started coming up there for a second. Yikes, I was getting too jacked. Use the hashtag TKS when we talk about today's episode. As always, we will see you all on Monday, talking our draft preview. Alex will be back here. We'll probably have some guests on for that, maybe. I don't know yet, but we'll be certainly talking about all the good stuff. Profits up next year on 12 Ounce Sports. Thank you once again for watching this episode of The Kuehl Show. Goodbye! As I slowly... there we go. Goodbye!